This video will take you through step by step how to build your multi-page layout. So I'm going to rebuild the example that is on the project sheet, and let's get started. So first thing I need to do is create a new document. InDesign is already open. You'll see over here on the startup screen there's a button called Create New. I'm going to click on that, and this brings up the new document window. So you'll see references throughout this video to other supporting videos. It covers all of this stuff in greater detail. If I covered everything in great detail in this video, it'd be about 2 hours long and would be nominated for an Academy Award. So I'd rather this be in the short film category. I will put this in short little segments and then reference other movies that you'll refer to get more details. First thing I want to do is click up here on the print button. And then right here on the left, you should see a blank document preset that says letter. That is the size of the page. So I'm going to make sure that is marked. And then come over here. And your units of measurement is going to be in picas. So I'd recommend you just change that to inches so it's more recognizable for you. So 8.5 width by 11 inches tall. Orientation vertical. That is what it should be. No horizontal magazines. Facing pages should definitely be checked. Remember, that's what a spread is, 2 side-by-side pages. And you want to start on page 1 so that the first page is a right-hand page by itself, and then pages 2 and 3 are side-by-side pages. So I'm going to change this to a 3 right here. Your start page is number 1. Number of columns, remember, keep it to 2 or 3. 1 is too wide. 4 columns makes your lines of text too skinny. So I'm going to do 2. And then the column gutter, I'd recommend you do about 1/4 of an inch. You can change this to be what you think is best, but just make sure your columns don't get too close together, because then people have a hard time knowing when to stop reading across the line. Margins, you can go ahead and set your margins in here. However, I'm going to show you how to change these inside of the document, so I'm going to leave this alone for now. And then finally, click the Create button, and voila, there is our document. So if I scroll down, there are pages 2 and 3. And if I scroll up, there is your first page. Okay, so let's move on to the next section, shall we? Okay! What I'd like to do now is show you how to modify the margins and the columns. You'll notice in the 2 pages showing here, pages 2 and 3, that the margins are all exactly the same, whether they're left, right, top, or bottom. And there are 2 columns like we specified, and the space between the columns is 1/4 of an inch. So that we want to keep, but we do want to change the margins. And you can do this in the master pages, but I'm just going to do this in regular pages, and probably as you're starting off, that's going to be better. So I'm going to go down here, open up my pages window. Here is page 2, here is page 3. I'm going to hold the Shift key and click on both of those so that they are both marked. If they aren't both marked like this, then when I go to change them, it will only change whatever page is marked. So I definitely want to do both pages. So now that those are blue, I can go up to the Layout menu at the top, and I can pull down to the second item, which is Margins and Columns. When this little window opens, the first thing I want to do is I want to uncheck this little link symbol here, because right now if I change one, the 3 others will change to be exactly the same, and that is not what I want. So I'm going to uncheck that so it's got the line through it. Another thing you may notice is that while it says top and bottom, over here you would expect this to say left and right. That would be true if we had individual pages, but with facing pages, it is a different animal. And so depending on which page you're looking at, you may not want the left margin to be the same on both. So that would be this page here and this page here. When you have two pages next to each other, usually the inside margins are going to be a little bit smaller because double of the outside margin is just going to give you a really big white space going through the middle of your layout. And so if it's facing pages, inside and outside, inside meaning it's closer to the gutter of the magazine, outside means it is next to the trim edge for the magazine. So I'm going to make the top margin here, I'm going to make this be 0.85. And again, we're recreating my layout, so I'm just copying the settings I used for my layout. And then the outside is also going to be 0.85. The bottom margin is going to be 0.75. And then the inside margin is going to be 0.625. All right, now if you have your preview button checked here, then you can see those changes being applied as you make them. Down here, number of columns, 2, the gutter, 1/4 of an inch, all that is great. So I'm going to click OK, and now I have adjusted my margins. Now, just to prove my point about why I selected these, if I go up to page 1, you will see that page 1 still has exactly the same margin settings. So I'll come back and fix that later. But for now, we are good to go, and we are ready to start placing our images. First, I want to get the image on page 1 here in, and then I will get the images on pages 2 and 3 in. So, first thing I want to do is go up to the File menu and pull down to Place. So you'll see the keystroke for that is Command D, and I am going to navigate to the folder with all of my images in it, which happens to be right here already open, and choose the image I want on the first page. Once I get the loaded icon, I'm just going to kind of click up in the upper left-hand corner, and then I'm going to reduce my page view a little bit so that I can see the whole page. You'll notice that right here is the edge of the page, and that the picture is larger than the page. And so that means we have a couple of options here. We can either just crop this to fit the page, or we can resize it and crop it to fit the page. So I'm going to do that option. I want the full width of this image in the page, and so I'm going to get either my free transform tool, which is right here under the scale tool, or I can keep my black arrow tool and hold the Shift and Command keys. But when I'm just going to use the free transform tool here, and I'm going to make very sure that I hold the Shift key. And so what this does is this resizes the box that is around the picture and the picture itself at the same time. If you don't use the free transform tool and just grab a handle like you would in Illustrator, then you will only change the box that is around the picture, and in essence you will be cropping it. And so that's what I'm going to do now. I've got the width the same as the page. I'm going to get my black arrow tool, and then I am going to click and drag the handles to crop the image. So the picture is now the same size as the page itself. Now, what if I don't like the way the picture is positioned within the box? Do I have to start over? And the answer is no. I can just roll over this with my black arrow tool, and when you see this circle in the middle, you can click on that, and that will show you the picture marked, but it will not mark the box that it's in. So say I would like this to be a little bit higher in the frame. I can just grab it, and you'll see that the box around the picture is not moving, but the picture is being repositioned within the box. And so I'm going to click away to unmark that. And then if you remember the groovy little trick to look at your page without all of the guides in there, I'm just going to hit the W key. And that gives me a preview of just the page without the guides. Okay, so easy, right? So let's go into pages 2 and 3 now. and get these images in. And so I'm going to hit the W key again, get my guides back, and then I'm going to go back to the File menu, pull down to Place. And this time I want the Angry Man, and so I'm going to choose him. And again, click in kind of the upper left corner. He's very big. And by the way, you'll notice for a minute there my image looked all weird and pixelated. Yours may still look weird and pixelated. So if you remember, I showed you this in class. That has to do with how InDesign is previewing it. So I've changed the preferences in InDesign so that it always displays my images as high quality. If yours isn't high quality, all you need to do is go up here to View, pull down to Display Performance, and choose High Quality Display. Alright, so now I have a picture and it's going to be the same thing as before. I need to change the size of the box and the image at the same time. But first I need to be able to see the whole image, so I'm going to Command minus to reduce my view. And then I am going to get my free transform tool, hold the Shift key, and I am going to drag this guy smaller. And then I can pull him up into position so I can see the whole thing and enlarge my page. So I'm going to pull this guy down to the bottom here. And he can be a little bit bigger than this. So I'm going to, again, free transform him up. Let's see, I think I want him to be about that big. And then I can move him over till I get him kind of centered in the format. Now, if I have more box than I need, then remember, if I just get my regular arrow tool, I can just crop it. So it's always a good idea to make your boxes as small as possible, because you're going to end up with a lot of boxes in your layout when you get the type and everything in too. Okay, so let me hide this, hit my W key again, and now I can see my screaming red man in position. And I'm actually going to move him over just a touch. So that is all there is to getting images into your document and cropping them. I will bring the other images in. Oh my God, how did that happen? It's a miracle. We've got our images in. Now it's time to start getting some type into here. So we're going to start on the first page here. I'm going to show you how to get the headline in, and then we will continue on and I will show you how to do the body copy. So remember with InDesign that everything must be in a box. You don't have a choice. For instance, if I get the type tool here, and whereas in Illustrator, where I told you just to click to get a point and then start typing, you'll notice that when I do that here in InDesign, things just blink a lot, but you don't get a blinking cursor. And that's because I need to have a box before it will let me make type. And so the key is to make the box with the type tool itself. So that's this guy right here. And it's a good idea when you're doing type like this to kind of do it outside of your page so that you don't accidentally attach your type to a box that has already been created. So if I click and hold and drag, I'm just going to make a box. Doesn't really matter what size for now. And you'll notice that I get a blinking cursor inside of that box I just drew. So I'm going to go ahead and type my headline. So I'm going to hit the caps lock key and no walk in the park. There it is. There is my headline. The problem is, of course, that it really isn't much of a headline. It's quite tiny. So to restyle this, there's two different ways I can go. I can click on this with my type tool, but you'll notice I don't really get type tools showing up here at the top. But if I go here and I grab the character window, then that will give me access to all of the controls, just like in the properties window in Illustrator. Now, if you don't see all of these windows, panic not. You have them. They just aren't showing yet. You can grab any window that you use from the, wait for it, window menu. And so I could pull down to type and tables, and the type menu I would want to use would be the character menu. So that's one way to do it, and that's the way I will usually do it because I don't like changing tools. But another way to do it is to just drag over it with your type tool, drag over the type, and then up here at the top you will see that you get various type controls. And so right now I am in paragraph mode, but if I click on the little A up here, that will switch me to character mode. And now I can go in and I can choose the typeface, the size, the leading, everything that I can control over here in the character window. Okay, so let's make this, and again I'm going to match what I did on my layout. I want to make the typeface Avenir Next bold. So right now where it says Minion Pro, drop that menu, and Avenir Next bold is right here. And bold. Bingo, baby. And now the size I would like to be 72 points, so I'm just going to type that in. And then the leading, the number right below that, you only need to worry about if you have more than one line of type, which I do. And I'm going to make this substantially less than the default is. I'm going to make this be 68 points. And look at that, it kind of magically all fits in that box, which is really just kind of lucky, because most likely this is going to happen to you, where all of a sudden some of your type disappears. Do not panic, stay professional at all times, as you see and hear me doing now. It isn't that your type is gone, it's just that you can't see it because the box isn't big enough to show it all. A visual clue InDesign gives you is this little red outline box with a plus sign in it saying, hey pal, you have type that isn't showing. And then I would say, why thank you InDesign, that's very kind, but don't ever call me pal again.
What?
So I'm going to drag the box bigger until I can see all of my type. So still a couple of things wrong. I would like my type to be centered instead of flush left. And I would like it to be white, so when I put it on top of the picture, I can actually see it. So I can click on this with my arrow tool in this case, and then I can go to my paragraph window over here. Or again, I could mark it with my type tool and do it up top. But I am going to change my alignment to centered. Beautiful. And then I want to change the color of this. So for this, I find it easier to mark it and get access to the color, type color up here, but I could also go to the swatches window. And I'm going to pull down to paper. InDesign is for print projects. That's what it was designed for. And whenever you're printing something, white isn't a printed color. It is just the color of the paper showing through. So I'm going to resize my box here, make it as small as I can, and then I can drag this over the top of my image and just kind of position this where I want it to be. Now, I can kind of eyeball center this, but that's usually not a good idea, unless, again, you are a professional like myself. But here's an easier trick. If your type is aligned to the center, you can just drag your text box to be the width of the page, and then it will automatically be centered in the page. Now you may say, hold or newt, Ron, something crazy happened with the type. And of course you would be correct. But that's easily remedied. I can just do what the old school people did on the typewriter. I can just, let's see, delete that extra space, then hit the return, and bada bing. If I don't like that word break, then I can move the N back up, give my space back, delete that, and move that back down. But I kind of prefer what I had before, because no walk in the park is a more logical way to break this. So let me get that back into position, and beautiful. So when you are breaking lines of type like this, do keep in mind that how you break it is very important, because it dictates how people read it. So no walk in the park is a little more commonsensical way to read this sentence, as opposed to no walk in the park. So when I get this thing exactly in the right position, I'm going to hit the W key so I can get rid of those guides. Then I can say, okay, be beautiful. I have just created a headline and I have put it into position, and it looks perfect. So next up, let's do some body copy. And then came the small type. So we need to get our body copy into here. So remember, body copy is the term for the small paragraph text. It creates the body of the document. Get it? To go with our headline and our footnotes. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is not draw a box.
What?
And so one of the nice things about placing, copy that is in another document, such as a Word document, is that you can let InDesign make the box for you. So just like when we brought in the pictures, it made the box around the picture for us. If we place the text, it will do the same thing. And yes, we are going to place the text just exactly the same way we placed the pictures. I'm going to go up to the File menu, pull down to Place, or go Command-D or Control-D on a PC. And then it will let me navigate to my text, which is one folder up. And right here, this is that Word document I gave you. And so I can click Open. And then I am given the loaded cursor, except this time it's showing me a little icon of text as opposed to a picture. Now, I could have drawn a box with the Type tool and then gone to Place, and it would fit it into that rectangle I drew. And I would have drawn my rectangle the same as the column guides here. But watch what happens if I just click inside of the column guides. It actually conformed to the column. So our type right now is going to run over the top of the pictures. We will fix that in the next segment. But there you go. Pretty nice, huh?
Yeah.
And the only problem I'm really seeing is there's a lot more text which isn't showing. And I know that because, well, I know it. And also because there's this little red plus down here telling me that there is more text that isn't showing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this text at the very top because I don't need it. That was our headline. Now, before I get the rest of the text in here, I would really like to go ahead and style all of the text because different type and different type sizes obviously are going to take different amounts of room, and so I want to see that unfold as I get all of the type in here. So if there is more type showing that I can't see, how do I mark that?
I don't want to know.
That's a darn fine question. And here's what you do. You just click inside of the type, and I never remember where Select All is in InDesign. I've given up on that. My brain just isn't big enough. Hard to believe, I know. So I am going to use keystrokes. So that is Command-A for Select All or Control-A on a PC. And that will select all of the type. So what I did was I clicked in the type box to get a blinking cursor. Then I went Command or Control-A. And that's going to mark all of the type whether I can see it or not. And so this time I want to change this. I want to make this be Georgia. And so I'm going to go up here in the control window and find Georgia. And by the way, here's a neat trick. If just on your keyboard you type GEO, it will take you right to the Georgia area. So I'm going to choose Georgia Regular. Perfect. Now the size I want is not going to be 12 points. So I talked about this in class, but I'm going to talk about it again, even though it's in the other videos that I've told you to watch. 12 point is too big. If you turn in your layout and it has 12 point or bigger for your body copy, you're going to lose points. It is too big. And so the normal size for a type in a magazine is going to be, could be as small as 8 point, depending on what the typeface is, but mostly it's going to be 9 or 10 point, sometimes 11. That's what we're going to do here. I am doing 11 point just because it feels comfortable with the layout I have, but never 12 point or bigger. So 11 point it is. So going to go up here and I can type that in, or I'm just going to click the down arrow right here. And now for leading. The rules of leading have changed over the years, and they have come to a place that I think is very smart, and that is a little more leading makes your type very easy to read. So in your layouts, you may decide to actually make your type be smaller, but then give more leading, because the more open the line spacing is, the easier it is to read. Now, you can go overboard on that, so don't go nuts, but I'm going to make my leading be 18 point, which is pretty big. And so I'm just going to click the up arrow here a few times. But what I discovered, and a lot of this is just common sense, if you look at this, and let me just zoom in a little bit here, you can see that this is a nice size. Remember, what you're looking for is approximately 40 characters in a line. And then that amount of leading is very easy for you to go down to the next line. And so that's what you want. You just want the reading of this to be inviting. So the tighter your leading, the less inviting it is to read, because it just becomes a big block of gray. The more open it is, the lighter it looks, the less intimidating it is for the reader to want to go in and read it. And again, that is of the utmost importance on this project. So, okay, so I've got my typeface set, I've got the sizes, and I've got the size and the leading just the way I want, but now I want to get the rest of the type into the page. So what do I have to do? Just place this thing 4 times and just adjust the box? Au contraire, as our French friends say. If I just click on this little plus sign, it reloads my icon. Whoa, Nelly. And then when I click here, boom. That continues on. Oh, look, here's the plus sign again. So I'm going to click it again, reload my icon, and woof, that gets the rest of the copy in there. Now, obviously, things are going to change when the type is not running over the pictures anymore, but we will get to that in the next segment, and you will see the magic that unfolds. I'm almost done here. I have all my images in. Probably will need to adjust their positioning a bit, but mainly what I need to do right now is to create the text wraps so that the text is not going over the top of the images. To do it is quite as simple as clicking on the image that you would like the text to wrap around, and then opening up the text wrap window. So remember, if your text wrap window isn't over here in the dock, you can go and find it up here. Just pull down to text wrap. Okay, so I'm going to open this. Right now, you see the little icons up here. The left one is currently marked, which is the default, and that means that there is currently no text wrap. And so you have various different choices. You can wrap around a bounding box. You can wrap around an object shape. So what I want to do for this one is I just want to wrap around the bounding box, in other words, the shape of the image itself. I'm going to click on that, and if you notice, the type does now go around it. It's not over the top of it, but its relationship to the image is not as good as it could be. It's actually touching the image here, and when you do yours, if you do text wraps, you really don't want to have your type too close to the image at all. So this is actually touching, which is very bad because it means that it's going to be hard to read. But I don't even want it to be very close to it. It just creates kind of a visual tension. So over here in the text wrap window, you'll see there are 4 different numbers, and you'll notice that there is a link symbol again between all of these. If you leave these linked, when you change one, it will change the amount for all 4 sides. And so what that means is whatever this dimension is, it's saying make it this far away from the, in this case, the top edge, the bottom edge, the left edge, or the right edge. So I'm going to unlink that, and initially I just want to change the right edge over here. So I'm just going to click the up arrow and just keep clicking it until I think that it's at a comfortable distance away. And so that looks pretty good. I like that. If I click away to unmark it, you'll notice I have my guides turned off, which makes it easier to see. So that looks good on the top. That looks good on the bottom. I'm actually going to change the crop of my image a little bit when I come to the next step, which is going to be finessing. But for now, that looks good. Coming over to this image, he is a different animal completely. He is not in a square box. Well, actually he is, but we don't want the type to wrap around him in a square box. We want it to wrap around the image itself. So this was created in Photoshop. In Photoshop, I created a transparent background. That's important for you to know. But even if this was a white background, we could make this work. First thing I want to do is check on the appropriate text wrap. So I don't want it the bounding box. I want it to wrap around the object shape. Now when this happens, you're going to see, well, hold on a minute there, Ron. It wrapped around the bounding box. So to change this, I need to tell it what contour options to use. So right now the type of contour it's looking for is the bounding box. So I want to change that to be either detect edges, which if this had a white background, I could use this. But since mine has a transparent background, a fancy word for transparency is alpha. And so we want it to detect that alpha channel, in other words, the stuff that is transparent, and use that as a guide to wrap the type around the object. And so that looks pretty good. I am noticing that this over here is a little bit too tight, and I'm noticing that this over here is way too tight. It's actually touching, so same problem as over here. Now you'll notice though that I don't have access to all four sides. I just have one dimension I can adjust, and it will adjust that universally around. So I'm going to click the up arrow, and I'm mainly looking at the right hand side till I get that to be a nice distance. So I'm going to click away so I can see a little bit better. That's not bad, but let me try one more click further away. And that is even better. So I like that position right there. It has enough distance so that it's not making it difficult to read, and it's not so close to the image that it's becoming a visual distraction. All right, so I'm going to pull this little guy away for now, and we will come back to him in a minute. That's pretty good. I got my text wraps just the way I want them. Now it's time for me to maybe do some adjusting. And so as I look at this, I'm thinking, I still have some room for my type to flow. This over here isn't working as well. And so, let's start finessing and figuring out exactly where we want our images to be and exactly what size we would like all of our images to be. So I'm going to go over here, and we have officially entered the finessing stage. And so this is pretty good, but I think I can make this picture a little bit bigger so that it's more even around here on the bottom. So this time I'm holding my black arrow key, and I'm holding the Command and the Shift key to enlarge the picture and the box around it at the same time. And so that's a little bit better. I like that. So now it's fairly even around, so much better. Now I didn't put a bounding box around this, which I would like to. And so let's go ahead and mark that shape, and this one I'm going to wrap around the bounding box. And again, I probably just need to adjust the right side. So I'm going to do that, just push that a little bit away. And you notice over here, let me zoom in. And you'll see I would actually like this to go underneath it, which there's room to do, but it's not letting it do it. And so I can go into here on the bottom of this, and I can actually make this be a negative number. So I'm going to click on the down arrow until that type has enough room to move over to where I would like it to be. And so I may want to finesse this just a bit, move it around a little bit. And then this here, it looks like I have an extra space or something in there. And so I'm going to go ahead and just see what that's all about. Oh yeah. So I'm just going to correct that and make it be just a single space as it should be. I'm noticing also, and these are the types of things that as you're finessing you want to look at, where this is the beginning of a new paragraph and it's just one line. So all of a sudden that starts becoming a bit of an awkward shape. Now this is the stuff you're going to have a hard time seeing, and I'm not going to judge you if you don't catch this kind of stuff. But this finessing stage is really all about just making subtle changes just to clean things up a little bit. I will come back and fix this later. I won't spend the time in the video here, but I want to point out that this is something called a widow. And so that is a word all by itself on a line all by itself that's at the end of the paragraph. So that is something that you would want to get rid of. Like I said, I'm not going to deal with it here, but the way I would do it is to mark, 1 or 2 or 3 lines, and I would give it a negative tracking number. In other words, I would make the overall letter spacing be closer together, and then that will absorb this one word up into the previous line and fix that problem. I would also do the same thing down here. This is a double problem. This is the first line of a paragraph showing up at the bottom of a column, and it is a widow as the last word in that paragraph. So I would fix this, and then that would help that problem as well there. So just kind of look at these things and be aware. Again, I'm not going to be that picky when I'm grading this, but this is what makes editorial design challenging. It's all these little details really kind of add up. I'm going to stop right here. I think you guys get the idea. This is the last thing that you want to do with your layout. So I might recommend what I advised to you on the first project was, if you can, finish this a day or two early. Walk away from it, come back a day or so later, look at it again, and you'll discover that you are seeing things more objectively, and that would be a good time to go in and start finessing little details till it looks just right to you, and then you're going to be ready to save your PDF file. So anyway, I hope this has helped. Be sure to watch the other videos to fill you in more thoroughly on the different functionality. But good luck on your project. I can't wait to see where you end up.